Holy words, long preserved for our walk in this world, they resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient words impart.
Welcome back to Echoes of Eternity, a journey through Scripture. I'm Douglas Marquardt, and today we continue our book-by-book journey through the Bible. We've come to a powerful turning point in Israel's history, the books of 1st and 2nd Kings. These books show us both the reach and the limit of human rule, and they point us to a far greater hope. In the Hebrew Bible, 1st and 2nd Kings are actually one book. They were divided later in history in the Greek translation known as the Septuagint to simply fit better onto scrolls. However, together these books tell one story. A story about kings and prophets, the temple and wars, rebellion and exile. But above all, it's a story that answers a very hard question. The question is this: why did God allow his people to be taken into exile? Well, the story begins with hope. Solomon, David's son, becomes king. Under Solomon, the kingdom of Israel reaches its peak and has peace and prosperity, and a magnificent temple is built in Jerusalem. That golden age doesn't last. Solomon dies. After his death, the kingdom splits into two separate kingdoms. The 10 tribes in the north follow Jeroboam. 2 tribes in the south remain with Rehoboam, who is Solomon's son. From that moment on, the history of both Israel and Judah spirals downward through bad kings, idolatry, political chaos, and national decline. The northern kingdom falls first. It's conquered by Assyria in 722 BC, and the people of that kingdom are scattered throughout the world. About 115 years later, the southern kingdom of Judah falls to Babylonia. Jerusalem is destroyed, the temple is reduced to rubble, and the people of God are taken into exile into the nation of Babylon. But Kings is more than just a record of events. It is a prophetic history. It's a history that teaches us. We don't just read what happened. We see why it happened and what it reveals about God, humanity, and the covenant that bound them together. The book of Kings speaks in the language of the Torah, God's instructions for life. See, every victory or every defeat, every king's rise or fall, every prophetic message echoes the covenant. That covenant says, if you obey me, I will bless you. If you rebel against me, judgment will come. Let's talk about the 2 themes that run through this book. First, there's the theme of kingship, and then the theme of covenant. And when we talk about kingship, we're talking about 2 specific themes. First of all, human kingship. The kings of Israel were supposed to serve under God's authority. They were meant to uphold justice, follow God's law, and lead the people in worship. Again, they failed. They led the people into idolatry. They exploited the poor, and they made alliances with pagan nations. Even the best kings, like Hezekiah and Josiah, couldn't fix what was broken. But that leads us into a second kind of kingship that's at work, and that's God's kingship. Through all of this, God is not absent. He is the true king. Through prophets like Elijah and Elisha, he reminds his people that he alone deserves their worship. And even in judgment, God never forgets his promises. At the very end of 2 Kings, something surprisingly happens. We read about King Jehoiakim, who was a descendant of David, who has been in exile in Babylon. Suddenly, he is released from prison, he's given a place of honor, and he eats at the king's table, meaning that he is now being raised back up. It's a small detail, but it's huge. It's God's way of whispering to his people, I haven't forgotten David. I haven't forgotten my promise. That promise that David's line would continue, that a Messiah would come, stays alive even in the darkest tough times. And one day, that Messiah would arrive. His name would be called Jesus. How do we look at this book? Well, back then, the people of Israel trusted in human kings, and it failed them. But for us, we faced that same temptation. We put our hope in human leaders, in systems, in politics, in wealth. We even put our hope in a form of religion. We put it in anything but in God. But the book of Kings calls us to bring back to that trust of the true King. It reminds us that faithfulness matters, that trust in God matters. And no matter how broken the world seems, God is still waiting, is still writing his story. We're part of that. Jesus is all over this story. He's the son of David, the rightful king whose throne will last forever. He's the greater than Solomon, wiser, more righteous, more faithful. He is the presence of God with his people, not in a temple made of stone, but in flesh and blood. He's the one who, even in judgment, offers mercy. Even in exile, there's hope. Even in death, there's resurrection. As you reflect on 1st and 2nd Kings, I want you to remember some things. First, that this is not just a story about ancient rulers. It's a mirror for us to look at our own life, our own times. It's about what happens when we take the throne that belongs to God and what he does in mercy and when we fall. Let the lesson of Kings lead you into a deeper trust, greater faithfulness, and a renewed hope in the only King who never fails. Thanks for joining me today on Echoes of Eternity. If this has been any help to you, I encourage you to subscribe to this, share this episode, and join us next time as we continue through the journey of Scripture, book by book, story by story, echo by echo. Until then, trust the true King.
Holy words, long preserved for our walk in this world, they resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient words impart.